And we are back, and we just saw 1958's Vertigo with a runtime of 2 hours and 8 minutes. This is rated PG. This is directed by Alfred Hitchcock with writing credits to Alec, Coppel, Samuel A. Taylor, and Pierre Boileau. I think this is based off a novel, right? This is the story of John Scottie Ferguson. I don't know why his nickname is Scottie if his first name is John and his last name is Ferguson.
Who knows? 50s, people are doing weird stuff.
True.
People had nicknames like Buzz and Zip and crap like that.
That's true. Played by the always fun to watch James Taylor. James Stewart, who kind of goes across against the grain. This is not like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington or even George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life. This is a very strange man.
Yes.
With very strange appetites and yeah. I think
he seems to have a lot of luck with much younger women too.
Yes, poor Midgie, played by Barbara Bel Geddes as Midge Wood, the woman who loves him but can't seem to get him to love her back. When we open up the story, there's this really fantastic sort of chase scene that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that is sort of like the precursor for a lot of, I mean, if you've seen this scene in a lot of action films, kind of like this rooftop chase.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me at least, I know it's 1958. There isn't a bunch of CG or special effects here, but it really holds up and it's beautiful because of the Technicolor, just the vibrancy of those colors really, really just propel this to something even greater. There's some shots in here. I know we're going to get to how weak the story is, but I think that frame wise, composition wise, cinematography wise, like this is a very beautiful film.
The scene in the beginning is interesting because it's blue. It's like very blue. It's like they dumped a bucket of blue paint on everything.
Right. And the sky is blue, like lapis. Like a lapis blue, not like a sky blue or a soft or a shy blue. It is a lapis. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not, as far as the scene goes, it's not spectacular and dynamic leaps and stuff like that. It's but it's
1958.
It's 1958,
and it's sort of a precursor of things to come.
It's definitely the catalyst for, like, what happens in this scene.
Yes, explains a lot.
It's basically the catalyst for the rest of the story. Mm-hmm. And the poor
cop.
That poor cop. He's like, "Give me your hand!" Ah!
And you just laughed
hysterically because it was just so like
terrible.
Yeah. And of course, a police officer plunges to his death, trying to help James Stewart, who is suffering from the vertigo, the name of the movie, and obviously, Jimmy Stewart he's not feeling good about that. He's I think what did they say, that he was a lawyer who wanted to become the chief of police.
Yeah.
And he was working his way up the ladder of the police force. And now basically it's like, oh, since you have this issue with heights, you're just going to have to sit behind a desk from now on. And he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to retire.
Right, because that's not what he... That's
not what he signed up for. That's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to do police work until he was the chief. But now he can't have that, so he's just going to retire because apparently he's independently wealthy as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just throwing money around.
Yeah, and for some reason, he's always hanging out with a woman that he was engaged to for 3 weeks, but isn't anymore. But they still just hang out all the time.
He just comes into her house like it's his.
He just walks in. Yeah. Doesn't even knock.
Yeah.
He just steps into her house while she's doing her painting and bra manufacturing or whatever the hell she does. And she's totally fine with it. Midge,
played by Barbara Bel Geddes.
She even has like the second runner-up's name.
Terrible.
You know?
That's awful.
She's not the Barbie, she's the Midge.
Yeah. I wonder if that's where Midge came from.
Maybe.
Wow.
It's such a like 50s style name for like, oh, it's just Midge.
Yeah.
Who cares what she
girl.
thinks?
Yeah.
Midge.
So, okay. I mean, there's so much to unpack here because it's the 50s. So culturally, this is a different film than what we're used to, different story. How the viewpoint of the sexes is very different. How they're portrayed on screen is very different. Obviously, the fashions and kind of the topography of San Francisco. Obviously, I'm sure San Francisco doesn't look as glamorous as it did in 1958.
I wouldn't say it's glamorous. It just looks nice.
Well, that's what I mean compared to now. I'm sure now it's all like steel and concrete
and glass and everything.
and all that
This
stuff.
had like old architecture.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like that's glamorous to me. Like that. Like I love. Well, you know, I love old buildings. You love old buildings. There's
it's
so
a more
much
classical
character.
look.
Yes, there's
as
so much
opposed
character
to
there. Yeah, and
what
even the
we have
hotel
now.
that she goes to, even though it's run down, there's just something like when he opens up the door and you see all that gorgeous wood. It's they don't make buildings like that anymore.
No.
It's a bygone era. So for that, I mean, if you love interior design and costuming and stuff like that, check this movie out. I guess let's delve into the story.
Yeah, so
this is your first time.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a brief synopsis or do you want to just go into how you feel about this film?
Give a little synopsis. The catalyst for the ongoing story is the fact that Jimmy Stewart's character, what's his name? Scottie has vertigo. It resulted in a cop's death. I guess it made the news.
Because his old college mate, Gavin, finds out about it.
Some old college guy comes out of the past and says that, I'd like to meet you with you. And he meets with him. And apparently it's not just to catch up, but Gavin has an issue and he wants somebody who is like a detective. Mm-hmm. And
a friend that he could trust.
A friend that he could trust. He doesn't want to go to the police. He doesn't want to go to psychiatrists. He wants to go to the detective. Because apparently what's going on is his wife is suddenly just staring into space, and suddenly she's not really his wife. It's like she's a completely different person.
She's possessed.
It's like she's possessed, and he needs Jimmy Stewart to follow the wife around. So Jimmy Stewart's reluctant, but he decides, okay, what else I got to do?
Right.
Follows her around. She is that Kim Novak?
Yes, that's okay. Kim Novak.
That's Kim Novak. So Kim Novak's character, what's her character's name in the movie?
It's Madeline.
Madeline. Okay, stick. No.
Okay.
Let's just stick. Madeline, the wife Madeline. So he follows Madeline around. Yes, she is indeed acting weird. She's going to museums, staring at a painting of a particular woman, getting bouquets of flowers that look exactly like the bouquet that the woman has, staying at places where the woman used to live. So in Jimmy Stewart's investigation, it turns out that the woman is apparently some lady who's been dead for hundreds of years. Yeah. And she's the great-great-grandmother of
the wife.
And it all seems to be, she's getting more and more possessed. She goes to underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and she jumps into the water. And Jimmy Stewart saves her and brings her back to his apartment. And even though she wakes up naked in his apartment, in his bed, she's, okay, thank you for saving me. That's just the beginning of just this sort of weird boldness that Jimmy Stewart just has with women in this movie.
Yes. Yes.
That's the best description I can come up with. Weird boldness. Because I can't imagine anybody doing the things that he's doing now.
Oh
like he doesn't even try and make her feel comfortable or, well, one, it's weird that he just she jumped into the water.
Yeah.
Take her to a hospital or something. She's unconscious. No, I'm just going to bring her to my house, strip her naked, and put her in my bed. And somehow this doesn't completely disturb the hell out of this woman. Instead, they become closer and closer, and now it's
I love you.
Now it's I love. They're exchanging I love yous and making out and whatnot, but yet she's still possessed, and so they end up going to some church or whatever. And she's like, I got to do something. And she leaves. She walks up the bell tower, and Jimmy Stewart's chasing her. And he's like, wait. Oh, no. And there's the vertigo kicking in. Oh, I'm getting woozy. I can't do anything. He can't go any further. She goes up to the very tippy top of the bell tower through a trap door. And the next thing you know, there's a window right near Jimmy Stewart. And you just see, and her body goes sailing past.
Dun, dun, dun.
And she's dead now. And Jimmy Stewart is horrified.
Yeah.
Once again, his vertigo has led to the death of another person.
Yeah. But he did surreptitiously slink away as the people on the grounds were up the ladder investigating. What is that?
Well, I mean, it didn't matter because the next scene he's basically being humiliated in was it a courtroom?
No, before that was I think he was in the I guess the psych place with Mitch.
that was after.
I thought that happened first.
No, that was after.
Oh, okay. I believe you.
He gets humiliated by that, and then he's in the psych place. where he's like, he's not even
Catatonic.
responsive.
Yeah, he's just
like,
catatonic.
he's just sort of staring. I expected drool to come out of his mouth, but I guess they didn't want to go that far. And Midge is there trying to like,
Right, because she's always there.
she's
as
always
she
there.
said.
She's completely in love with him and his weird boldness. And then he starts going around. I guys he's out of the psych place. He's driving
Just
around
walking
town,
around,
and
he sees the car.
he sees this woman, I guess, who looks like
Madeline. Yeah.
Or Judy, right?
Yeah.
And he basically just barges into this woman's life and starts changing her until she looks exactly like she did.
Or exactly like Madeline.
like Madeline. He forces her to change the way she dresses.
Her hair.
Forces her to change her hairstyle or hair color. When the style isn't right, he forces her to change the hairstyle. And for some reason, she falls in love with him, like as this disturbing, controlling behavior is going on. And she knows that he's doing this because he wants her to look more like the dead girl.
Yeah.
And then finally she looks just like the dead girl. And he's just like, yeah, baby.
And I'm assuming they consummate the
assuming,
relationship.
yeah, because the next morning or the next day, it's like, everything's great.
Or a couple of hours later.
Who knows?
Allegedly, they're going for dinner. She says she's hungry. He's like, whatever you want.
Yeah, he's like thrilled. But then,
Dun, dun, dun.
dun, 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 she puts on the necklace that looks like the necklace in the painting.
Right.
And he's like,
And then the jig is up.
And he brings her to the church and he forces her up the stairs as he's rambling and going on about how he's figured it out and he knows what happened. And basically what happened was, yes, she was hired by Gavin to pretend to be the wife. And then in the initial thing, the woman that got thrown off the building, she was dead already. That was his wife. He killed his wife, threw her off, and
then they snuck away.
So...
And he gave her money and jewels, I guess.
He gave her money and some
she
jewelry.
made the mistake of putting on that necklace.
And she made the mistake of putting on the necklace. But he's... Jimmy Stewart
But wait, you didn't... At the end...
Oh,
the ending was the very you couldn't even
they get all the way up to the top and Jimmy Stewart is like, I did it, my vertigo's cured, and then a nun just appears.
I heard voices
like seriously, like creeping up like the nun from the horror movie, and she's just like, I heard voices, and Judy / Madeline just goes and runs out the window and plunges to her death. And Jimmy Stewart is just like, oh my God. And that's the end.
You love it.
I'm just standing there like going, what the fuck just happened? And I still don't know what was the whole... okay, yeah, he's mad, but it's still the woman that he fell in love with, right? Who, I mean, they fell in love with each other. Clearly, she must have loved him and to basically let him do that to her after the fact. She could have just been like, you know what, you're a weirdo, fuck off.
Yeah.
If she didn't care for him, but apparently she did love him.
Yeah.
So she let him turn her back into Madeline, which is just it's just disturbing as hell.
You know what? It's funny. So this is one of my so let me start from the beginning. So this is one of my dad's favorite films, and I remember watching it as a young person and being completely enthralled because I think secretly I loved Technicolor. I loved thrillers and mysteries, and I think we'd seen other Hitchcock movies before, but there was something about this that was kind of a little bit risque. As a young person, I could see that. I'm sure like 1958 audiences could see that as well. And just this lavishness with Kim Novak's character, kind of, she's this gorgeous, mysterious, just sophisticated woman, and this guy who obviously isn't good enough for her just falls madly in love with her, and she for some reason falls in love with him, and then they have like this doomed romance because apparently she's possessed by Carlotta. So there's just so much. It's almost like melodrama, like a Cirque film. So I've always enjoyed.
There was like a lot of that style music.
Yes.
Strings everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was going on throughout the entire thing. And in my mind, I'm just like, why did anybody like Scottie? He was. You know, it's funny. He was horrible. He was a horrible
in retrospect. He is terrible because I just watched this with you, and yes, it is somewhat cringy.
Yeah,
not somewhat.
I feel
it is
no
absolutely
sympathy or pity
yeah,
for
it's
Scottie.
absolutely cringy.
I feel sympathy and pity for everybody in Scottie's life that cares about him so much that they're willing to just give up themselves
to help him
from the cop in the beginning to Judy at the end.
Yeah,
it's just like all for Scottie.
Yeah, and he didn't deserve it.
It absolutely didn't deserve it, and it's not like as though there's some sort of like, okay, well, who's the guy's name? The husband
Gavin.
It's not like, okay, well, we got to team up and get Gavin now. Mm-hmm. No, Gavin, he's living his life. He went to Europe. He's scot free. He got away with murder.
Yeah,
and meanwhile, Scottie is now just standing on top of a freaking church tower again. He's like basically he's a serial killer now.
kind of.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Anybody who views this from the outside looking in is going to be like, he likes killing blonde ladies.
Yes.
That's the only conclusion that could come from this. Because they're going to be like, Scottie, what happened? Well, she was actually the first blonde lady, but she wasn't. She was pretending to be the blonde lady that died, but she wasn't that blonde lady. Then she became like a brunette or a redhead or something. Yeah. And then I made her into the blonde lady again, and now she's dead again.
That coroner gave him the business, huh?
Oh, the coroner was hilarious. He's just like, his cowardice. He's got like a mental disorder, and the coroner's just like, his cowardice caused him to fail to do his duty.
Yeah.
And like, even his friend was like, that was pretty brutal, Scott.
Imagine the killer saying, yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that was hard to watch, Scott. That guy just called you a pussy in front of everybody, and you just had to take it.
So obviously this is a movie that's dated, that probably, I think the bare bones of it are still interesting. I think I read recently that they're trying to remake this, which will be interesting.
They gotta do some serious editing on that story.
Sure. Yeah, it's very long. It goes very slow.
That ain't gonna fly with today. Yeah. I mean, there's no way Scottie's character is even remotely acceptable by today's standards.
No, for sure. But this is, we've had this conversation before. Like, these are the kind of films you should remake.
Yes.
And make them better.
Yeah.
Like this, the bones of this is good. I think the bones of this is good, but if you can improve on that story, which you absolutely can, then remake this stuff.
Yeah, that the story is actually pretty clever with like the whole plan to get this guy who has this
impediment
that's that you could take advantage of and use it to sort of like get the perfect witness for the person you want to kill's death.
Yeah.
That was genius.
Yeah.
I mean, good on Gavin. Yeah. He's this clever guy. I like him. I like him more than Scottie.
I was gonna say he comes across less scummy than Scottie, right?
Yeah.
How funny.
He comes across as like a concerned husband who doesn't want to embarrass his wife by having her put into a sanitarium.
But so these are definitely the films, and you can absolutely improve. I think there's still good source material to work from, and obviously in the hands of a good script writer, this can be like a masterful reproduction of something that was so beloved back in the day. I'm probably going to give it a higher number than you, only for A, the nostalgia factor, B, what this movie means to me, and C, just all the other film elements, because I think I don't feel like I don't think you're a film snob either, but I certainly am not a film snob, and I'm all about tell me a good story, entertain me, right? So that's, and even though we were both film majors at one point in our lives, it's funny now, there's many years from that life, and I think my snootiness has gone away. There used to be a time, and I'm sure this was with you too, like you would look at the lighting and you'd be like, oh, that wasn't really lit very well, and they could have worked better on this. Well, I still complain about scripts because the art of writing is so important to me. You could say, oh, this director obviously didn't have a firm handle on his actors, or this actor was phoning it in. So you're more critical of it, but obviously with time and distance, some of those things fade away. And for me, I'm still entertained, but to your point, absolutely, there's elements of this story that absolutely could not happen right now and would need to be changed.
Not if you wanted Scottie to be the protagonist or the hero of the story.
And
He's
somebody that you want to be sympathetic toward.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is nothing likable. I mean, in the beginning, I felt like Scottie was likable, but then
I didn't like him in that at all.
Really?
Ever.
I think when Judy comes into his life is when you, at least for me, start disliking Scottie. But then I think at the end, with that shot that you see, you're supposed to feel sorry for him.
Well, for me, I didn't like him from the beginning just because like his relationship with Midge.
Yeah. Definitely a red flag.
That was definitely sort of like you're the girl I keep in the little case with the glass that I'm going to break in case of emergency. I know you love me, but whatever. And as far as Judy goes, by then he was already nuts.
Fair.
He was nuts already. So you had a guy who was already flawed from the beginning, and now he's even more so. Just at that point, he's just deranged, especially the way he's basically forcing her to change her entire life. And I mean, come on, have some self-respect. Tell this dude to just get the hell out of here. Judy, come on.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, but like 10-year-old me, I mean, to me, this was like the epitome of movies because it does take an interesting turn. The story does turn on its head and just become something completely different. But there's still this aura of mystery and drama and even to an extent romance, although it's very toxic.
The romance element in this movie it's not healthy.
No,
it's not.
No.
It's I wouldn't classify this as because for me, romance, nobody's getting taken advantage of, really.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
yeah, you have those stories where there's clearly the guy or the guy or the girl who's the manipulator, but that's not the romance. That's a manipulation story.
Right.
Or if there is that, then the true romance comes in where the other person comes in that makes the person that's being manipulated realizes their self-worth and then hopefully the two good people get together. Mm-hmm. This was not that at all.
No.
It wasn't like as though and like that's the thing, it's a complicated story because you never know Gavin's wife.
Right.
She's never shown on. I mean, her body is shown hurling through the sky.
And even in the flashback scene where she's remembering what happened that day, you see her very briefly.
Yeah, you never really see. I don't even know if you get to see her face, and you just know she's blonde. That's it. So yeah, it's not like as though Judy was in like some sort of. You saw the relationship between Judy and Gavin really. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think they're only together in the scene where the lady gets hurled off the tower and when they have dinner that one time. Mm-hmm. And you don't see anything that's going on at the table. It's just two people sitting and having dinner. Yeah. And that's it. So you don't know if there's some sort of manipulation going on there. I mean, clearly she's down for murder. Mm. So Judy's not really an angel, but I don't know how do you build a romance out of that with these people that you really wouldn't want. You don't want good things to happen to any of these people.
No.
None of these people deserve good
no, except
happy
for Midge.
lives. Yeah, except for Midge, but Midge is she's got to move on herself.
Yeah, for some reason she's still stuck on Scottie.
She's still stuck on Scottie, even though he looks like he's old enough to be her dad.
Yeah, she really should move on. I mean, to me, I'm like, although there's that scene, I don't know if we said this before, where he basically said, well, we were engaged, but you're the one that broke it off. So he probably would have married her. He absolutely would have married her.
Yeah, maybe she realized he's not marrying material.
Well, she's still by his side.
Yeah.
And it feels like she's putting her life on hold for him. But I that's a different movie. Yeah. But for this one, again, for the nostalgia, for the kernel of the story and how it plays out, I really still enjoyed it. There are issues with the character of Scottie, for sure. But I think that if they're going to remake it, I think a writer now would have that sensitivity to change it to where it's a more acceptable character. I would still watch this again because, again, I think it's more of the nostalgia factor. It reminds it. I think about my father whenever I see this movie, because this is, I want to say, his favorite Hitchcock movie. It was either this or Rear Window, but I'm pretty sure it was this. It was Vertigo, because what's more stunning than Kim Novak in this film? I mean, she is just gorgeous. I don't know. I think she's beautiful.
I like Rear Window better.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Rear Window was Grace
Kelly,
right?
who's also gorgeous.
Grace Kelly's.
Yeah. Hitch really had it for the blondes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, you know what? Maybe that's why Scottie was the way he was, because it was just a parallel for Hitchcock. Because from what I understand, Hitchcock was just like, he was like that.
Yeah.
He was just like, you belong to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I think the male characters in a lot of his films are an extension of him. Yeah. So.
But I remember Jimmy Stewart being more likable in Rear Window.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, because he's a different character.
Like
he's not
like
this.
He's a protagonist that you feel for. You have sympathy for, and he's not like
deranged.
He's not like, you need to change your hair. You don't look good. You don't look like my dead girlfriend enough.
No, it's a different film. It's a different. I mean, this one, it's darker. I think Rear Window, even though there's a murder, it's still a more optimistic story.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting because there are films of Hitchcock that are more light than dark, and then you have the stuff that's really dark. Something like this, something like Marnie. Those kind of films are. There's definitely like darker undercurrents.
Yeah, but even still, there's this. I just did not like any of the characters, and aside from the murder plot, there's really nothing that I liked about this movie. And plus, it really took a long time to get going. Okay, fair enough. Yes, I was very bored in the beginning of this movie.
Okay. I mean, this is a movie from 58. I'm assuming people's tolerance, although for 1958, 2 hours and 8 minutes is a long time. So you're making an investment. But I mean, you think about other long films from bygone eras. Lawrence of Arabia, I think, is like 3.5 hours. Ben-Hur from the 50s is also something crazy.
They had intermissions.
Right. Gone with the Wind. Well, Gone with the Wind was 40s, right? Early 40s, or
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, depending on the story, right? I think that you can hold an audience's attention. I mean, even closer to our time now. I mean, a lot of films, I feel like hour 90 minutes is today's 2 hours.
I honestly, I normally don't care about the time, but it needs to be time well spent and managed, and this
wasn't it for you.
This wasn't it. It dragged too long in the beginning.
That
could have been tightened up.
Amazingly, I was wide awake the whole watch experience.
Plus, it just, like I said, aside from the murder plot, which is kind of like the middle of the movie, I don't feel like my time was rewarded well, because I didn't, like I said, all I got to see was like another half hour, 45 minutes of Jimmy Stewart being a dick.
But you would have missed out on that ending. That ending is wild.
Yeah, it's something. All right, well, what would you give this?
Again, for the nostalgia factor and stuff, I can't lie. I love this movie. It's not a perfect film, but I'm going to give it an 8. It's probably a 7, but I'm going to give it an 8.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Wow.
It's not a good movie.
You're wrong.
It's not good.
You're wrong.
You can say I'm wrong all you want, but it's not good. The story takes too long to get going. None of the characters are likable. And then it just overstays its welcome. Well,
I disagree, but that's the beauty of the film watching experience. Everybody brings or takes away what they individually get from it. We saw this on DVD, but it is to buy rent on, I believe, Prime. And I think that for obviously older movie lovers, if you haven't seen this, absolutely get on it. If you like sort of weird mysteries, this is kind of an interesting watch. It's interesting to see how this movie has influenced other movies. Being from 1958, if you look at other movies that have preceded it, you'll see, I guess, callbacks to it. which is kind of interesting when you watch things.
You mean come after it?
Right. What did I say?
Preceded.
Oh, I guess followed it.
Yeah.
The films that have followed this film. Sorry, I didn't mean to proceed. So yeah, so I think that that's kind of cool because you see the influences that Hitchcock had and stuff like that. And then you see films where things are like this are mimicked. So that's kind of interesting to me, at least as a movie watcher, when you see the parodies or the mirroring of things, because obviously the newer filmmakers are paying homage to the older filmmakers, and Hitchcock's name definitely comes up a lot. And not to take away from him, but I think it's interesting when the student surpasses the master. And that's absolutely the case. We're going to pair this movie with something like with The Usual Suspects, which is kind of, you can say that it comes from that line
That
of
lineage,
Hitchcockian thrillers and stuff, but it exceeds it, right? It's better than.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's kind of nice. And then you look at other films, like let's say Knives Out, where you have a murder and you have a mystery, and obviously a film like that exceeds like even the older films because it's just so well done.
Yeah.
The writing on that is so sharp. Everything comes together so nicely. And so it's always a treat to watch these newer films that obviously are paying homage to older films. And I think something that you mentioned when we were reviewing The Usual Suspects about how you hope that newer audiences still at least give these older films a chance, if only just to see how, like, the progression of cinema, the progression of storytelling, to understand where we are. Sometimes we have to revisit where we've been, right? So I think that's kind of a nice full circle thing here, and to bring it full circle to me in my life. Again, this is a film that my father absolutely loved, and whenever I see it, I think of him, and that's probably why I'm going to be a little bit more positive about it, because it's my dad. It's like a link to my dad, and today would have been his 91st birthday, and I miss him so much. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. I encourage people to see this because I think it's a great piece of cinematic history. The name Hitchcock evokes so many things, and I think that so many people have come down the line as storytellers because of Hitchcock, because of what he put on the screen. Might not have been such a great guy, but I think his legacy speaks for itself. You didn't like it, fair enough. You had some valid points, and I hope that whoever is remaking this now takes those points, because I think the kernel of the story here is really great and just runs with it and really does something fantastic with it, because I think the potential for this story to evolve and really get its hook into the audience's psyche is absolutely there. Anything you want to add before we close it out?
Nope, that's it.
That's it from us, and we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.